Okay, thanks everybody for attending our first or inaugural Accessibility Advisory Committee for this term. So the time is 7:04 on Wednesday, April 12th, and we're going to call this meeting to order. The first item that we need to make a decision on is to nominate and appoint a vice chair. And would anyone like to put out some nominations?
And the duties of the vice chair are what exactly? Just to clarify.
Well, from my understanding, it's essentially if I'm not available to chair the meeting, the vice chair will just take my place and lead the meeting. Is there anything else, Linda, besides that? And maybe do everyone's chores every other day, visit everyone's house. No, just to chair the meeting. Should I be absent? It's a lot of fun. And you can nominate yourself if you like.
Oh, no volunteers, eh?
Well, you know what?
I guess since I spoke up, why don't I'll volunteer.
Okay. Any other volunteers? If not, then can I have a mover for this motion for Peter to be the vice chair?
I'll move it.
Okay.
That Peter become vice chair.
Sure. And anyone to second?
Mrs. Spitzer.
Max seconds it. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favor? Raise your hand. All those not in favor? Okay, that passes. So congratulations. Peter, you are the vice chair.
Moving up in the world.
Okay, so before we start the next portion of the meeting, we'll do the land acknowledgement. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas, recognized through Treaty 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. So with that, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as is? I have a mover of the agenda.
I'll move it.
Okay, Joanne, can I have a seconder?
Mine.
Okay, Max. Okay, put that to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that passes. I just want to declare any pecuniary interest. Anyone have any pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll continue. So we don't have any minutes as this is the inaugural meeting, and we don't have any delegations. So we will move into the matters for consideration. 7.1 memorandum from the manager regarding business support on Parks and Recreation Master Plan Draft 1 presentation. So we'll have a presentation from John Furman, our manager, business support. So thank you, John. And would you like to share what you have?
Sure. All right. Good evening, everyone. So tonight I'm just joining you for a bit to give you a quick overview of where we are with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. The Parks and Recreation Master, actually, can you pull up the slide deck? While Linda's pulling up the slide deck, Just going to go over where we're at with the master plan that we're working on, and then let you know about the committee's opportunity to provide some feedback before we finalize it. Thank you. Go to the next slide for me. Thanks, Linda. So the Parks and Recreation Master Plan is used to help guide our decision-making around program development, facilities development regarding our parks and open spaces, our recreation facilities, and our recreation programming. The last master plan was a 5-year document developed and approved by council in 2016, and we're just updating it now based on more current information and current community input, and it's intended to be a 5-year plan to carry us through to 2027. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the scope of the plan focuses on indoor recreation facilities such as our aquatic centers, arenas, gymnasiums, other indoor recreational facilities, our outdoor facilities such as sports fields, playgrounds, and sports courts, and our general parks and open spaces, and our programming of such as well. The plan considers the various inputs such as public and stakeholder input, demographic and growth data, participation trends, municipal benchmarking. We focus our municipal benchmarking on similar municipalities and with a concentration on York Region as well, and then whatever other information is available within Ontario municipalities. And of course, we refer to various supporting policies and other studies that the town has done as well, such as our sports field development strategy, our trails master plan, and various plans such as that. So we conducted our public engagement beginning last summer through to the fall and winter. We conducted a community survey. We had 544 responses. 455 of those were from residents. We did find we had a significant number of responses from people outside of town that were specifically focused on disc golf. We did have a presentation earlier in the year from a group that wanted to bring disc golf into town. And we do believe there was some effort on their part to rally support for disc golf specifically and that's, so we include that information, but we do speak to it in the plan so that it's taken in the context in which it was delivered, being mostly from out of town people. We also did a pop-up booth at the farmers market. We engaged approximately 75 people at the farmers market and got their input in various ways at that event. We conducted a series of stakeholder workshops, which included a total of about 15 of our community sport organizations. We had a consultation session with our youth advisory committee. We had a series of staff consultation meetings, and we had council consultation meetings as well, all to get as much input as possible into drafting the master plan. This is just a sample of some of the things we found through our survey, for example. One of the questions we asked was about the most popular parks and recreation activities, and these are the results that came in, walking and hiking for leisure being number 1 on the list, special events being second, and cycling. And the list goes on from there. So there's quite a variety of specifics we asked for and got a good sampling. So this gives you a sense of what the community is identified as some of their favorite things to do within our parks and facilities. Thanks. A couple of examples of some specific questions asked. We had 44% of the survey respondents identified that they're unable to participate as often as they would like. And the main barriers being a lack of desired facilities or programs, the program or activity is full, or a lack of personal time as well. And related to our outdoor recreation facilities that have the largest gap in expectations, 86% of respondents feel that outdoor recreation facilities are very important, but only 60% were satisfied with the availability of those facilities. So that and there's a little more specifics that come out through the master plan survey. Gives you a sense of the priority rankings from the community. So the blue is where is the percentage of people that identified that activity as a higher priority, and the green being a lower priority. Parks washrooms has been something we've been hearing about for a couple of years. And certainly the survey identified that as well as a greater desires to have more washroom facilities. Nature trails also ranked at the same at 87% being a priority for the community. Multi-use fitness trails are growing in popularity, and parkland acquisition identified as a priority, and playgrounds. So you see a lot of focus we're finding is on outdoor activities currently. Just some broad themes that we're identifying so far is expanding options for outdoor recreation, such as disc golf, outdoor rinks, off-leash dog parks, splash pads, playgrounds, other activities like that. Enhancing our existing facilities, such as adding lighting to sports fields or repurposing lesser used features, so to reprioritize or be able to generate more use out of existing facilities. Supporting local and regional organizations through sport-friendly facilities, such as adding another indoor pool or additional turf fields to support more tournament play and things like that. And addressing changing demographics, such as growth, diversity, an aging population, persons with disabilities, just broadening our attention to the demographics. Some other trends and emerging influence that we're identifying through this process is that communities are increasingly viewing recreation and parks as essential services and believe that these will be critical, especially through the recovery from COVID. Staffing and volunteer shortages have created a lot of challenges. We're finding that's plaguing a lot of areas of not just municipal services, but a lot of service areas, and it's not just locally. This is a North America problem in many regards. We're finding it significantly right now. We're experiencing here in our aquatics programming. It's very difficult to find trained staff for lifeguard positions and swim instructors, as an example. Outdoor recreation is definitely on the rise. Through COVID, we certainly identified that outdoor recreation was what was able to come back faster. And so a lot of people flocked towards those outdoor activities that may not have been participating before because it was something they could do when they couldn't go indoors. And so we're seeing a continued lasting effect of that, which is great. And we're seeing that municipalities are placing a growing emphasis on inclusion, of course, barrier-free accessibility, affordability, and addressing climate change. A couple of selected recommendations that are coming out of the first draft of the master plan that we're seeing so far is for Aurora specifically, of course, now is to continue to pursue options for securing land to support a community center in the Southwest. This was identified in our last master plan back in 2016 as well. The key challenge here being land. It's not nobody's making more, and it's not being given away. But if we are able to identify a suitable location, there's certainly support for consideration of building another recreation center with another pool, gymnasium, walking track, and additional program features. Also, it's being recommended that once I would preface this, that once we see a decline in the need for five pads, we should be looking at considering repurposing the arena at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex into a dry land facility, an alternate space. We are noticing across that ice sports are declining over the last few years. It's not a drastic decline, but there's a slow and steady decline in ice sports. I think affordability is a major consideration there. So right now we're fully utilizing all five arenas, but this identifies that longer term, if we start seeing that we don't need all 5, that this is the location we should start looking at for repurposing that facility. Regarding outdoor recreation facilities, we're looking at completing a scoped review and update to the sports field development strategy. The sports field development strategy was completed 3 years ago. And so that's one of the things that we are already working on. But one of the recommendations out of the plan is to revisit that, to update the strategy, looking at what we've accomplished so far and what we still need to accomplish to meet our needs. One of the key factors in this is we have a 19 field facility on the Stronach lands in front of the Magna head office that we will be losing in a couple of years as that land has been earmarked for development. Another key recommendation, which is probably being discussed next door as we speak, is the establishment of an outdoor pickleball complex of a minimum 6 courts. And looking at other possible partnership options, such as the one we have with the Aurora Community Tennis Club, for example. Advancing reconstruction on the skate park at the leisure complex, addressing gaps in playground and sport court provisions through future park projects, and preparing a business plan to consider options for a refrigerated outdoor ice rink. That was a lot of interest identified in a more permanent outdoor rink that is not as subject to the weather as our natural rinks are. Some parkland recommendations coming from what we're hearing from the community is to update the policies to reflect changing legislation and Aurora's urban structure. Bill 23 in particular is we're waiting to see the details of that as far as how that's going to impact parkland acquisition. Setting a goal to achieve a service level of 2 hectares per 1,000 residents, which would be a total of about 17.2 hectares of total parkland by 2031. I think we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 hectares right now, so a little bit of catching up to do as the population grows. Also, recommending that we take a parkland first approach to securing land and maximizing access to sites. This would be in lieu of taking cash in lieu of parkland from developers, for example. We need to find some more space. And developing a strategy for the renewal of key park sites. For example, Confederation Park is due for a complete renewal and reconfiguration in 2026. So the idea being when we have those opportunities, we need to look at what the existing community needs are and make sure we're identifying the existing needs and not necessarily just replacing like for like with what's already in a park. Service delivery and program supports. This is recommending that we continue to fully implement the recreation user fee and pricing policy. That study was done a couple of years ago and we've implemented a lot of it, but there can still be some more implementation can happen. Conducting a comprehensive review of our permitting procedures and allocation policies, which is something that we are planning to do this year. Undertaking a recreation program review and special events policy to clarify service levels for our events team, and continuing to collaborate with schools and or other partners to enhance access to the space and facilities that we need for programming and creating more community hubs for programming. Some of the areas in which the plan has identified the need for support for accessibility. The plan recognizes that we are having a growing population with increased mobility challenges, as well as an aging infrastructure that may not be fully barrier-free. The plan supports regular consultation with the Accessibility Advisory Committee to ensure compliance with the AODA. Supports barrier-free playground components and infrastructure to support inclusive participation. So it supports the provision of amenities such as more benches, seating areas, bike racks, shade, whether it be structures or tree canopy, and barrier-free washrooms in the appropriate park types to again make everything a little bit more accessible. Identifies the need for training and community outreach to engage underrepresented populations such as persons with disabilities and removing barriers to participation. And recommends a recreation needs assessment for specifically for persons with disabilities. So our next steps, the draft plan, I think it was made available, it was provided to the committee. Yep, okay. It is also available on the town's website through engageaurora.ca. It's for anybody to view. We're asking for the community at large, our stakeholders, and we're inviting this committee as well to review the draft plan and provide any additional comments or feedback that you'd like us to consider. We're asking for any written submissions can come straight to me by May the 3rd at the latest so that we can finalize the plan. We are also holding a public open house on Monday, May the 1st at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex. The details of that are also on the Engage Aurora site. So that we can, once we get all that feedback, any comments related to the draft plan, we'll finalize, make any updates to that draft, and we're bringing forward the final master plan to council for approval at the general committee meeting on June the 6th. And that's it. So like I say, I would encourage you to take a look at the master plan. Please send me an email with any comments you have. Welcome to drop by the open house, and I'm happy to answer any questions while I'm here.
All right, thank you, John. Can I have a mover and a seconder to put this item for discussion, please? Okay, Haley, and a seconder.
I'll second it.
Okay, to Allison. Okay. All right, thank you. Any comments or questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure, Joanne.
Even though the hospital's not in our town, one of the things that really perturbs me is that we're the people that use it, and they've shut down the therapy pool. And I was on a fundraiser for that years ago, and think that Whipper Watson put his name forward, and they raised all the money and they did that pool. And how many people need that assistance? And I didn't know whether the town of Aurora would be as a recreational and things for people with accessibility issues would go forward. Have they ever written a letter to the hospital saying that they feel that it needs to be kept open?
I don't have all the current details, but I can tell you that we actually were in discussions with the hospital about transferring that entire program to the town of Aurora at our therapy pool at the Stronach Aurora Recreation Complex. So
It's not as warm as the therapy pool, though.
no, but like I think there's options to adjust that. Well, what I'm saying is we were certainly talking to them, so we were in active dialogue with them. That, to the best of my knowledge, is no longer happening, and I believe the hospital was the ones that decided they didn't want to move forward. I don't have the details. I wasn't personally involved, but my understanding is the hospital decided they didn't want to move forward.
For me, I think
Yeah.
it's a real concern. And the other question, the thing I had was, I noticed that they're going forward with some of the things about the fellows that are delivering on bikes and stuff, and they're trying to get them delivering properly and riding their bikes properly. Are we doing anything about our citizens in town, especially men, because that's who I've seen, that drive along a sidewalk and drive straight through the stop sign and across the road? And it happens on a regular basis. And when I was a kid, I had to go to the police station and get a license for the back of my bike and put it on under my seat as a saddle, as my dad called it. And we had to have that underneath, and we had to answer questions at the police station. And now these people, I mean, it's just not children doing it accidentally. They're full-grown adults just driving straight through the stop sign, but on the sidewalk. And I just didn't know if there's anything.
Unfortunately, I wouldn't know about that. It's outside of the scope of what we do within Parks and Recreation.
Well, it is
sounds
a
more-
recreation thing of riding your bike.
I mean, we are looking at doing a trails and active transportation master plan. But as far as that specific issue, I have no knowledge of that. That sounds more of an enforcement issue.
Well, I
but-
know, but it's not only that, it's just a safety issue
Yeah.
for our citizens and stuff, but some of them just don't pay attention and it causes a car accident or causes somebody to get hit coming the other way or on a bike or anyway, things that I thought I'd bring forward.
Sure, that might be a conversation, as John said, trails and active transportation and master plan.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any comments or questions?
Yeah, in regard to a potential community center in Southwest Aurora. I do know that there are some condos growing up with and buildings. Would the town of Aurora ever consider putting a community center at the bottom level of a condo building?
So I think I heard was about near the Aurora Community Center, Max, that you heard that there were condos going up, condo buildings.
Yeah, I heard there's some buildings going up in Southwest Aurora, and I was wondering if the town could put a community center below the condos.
So I think I understand what you're asking. Anything like that would depend on opportunities with the developers. Certainly, with any development, the town will often just work with the developer to identify, do we want retail space included within that development? Do we want recreational space? Usually, depending on the development, we acquire park land as opposed to infrastructure. We acquire park land where condominiums are developed because there's no space for park or whatever. I couldn't speak to that directly. That really would come out of the planning process. But what this master plan does is certainly identify the need for us to be more creative and looking for those partnership opportunities. So whether it was a full community center or just some limited public access to recreational facilities, that's potentially something that could be considered on a case-by-case basis through the planning process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Max. I see Allison's hands up. Go ahead, Allison.
I heard your comment around partnerships with schools, and I'm curious what discussions are happening about the park at Highview, which was one of our only accessible parks, truly accessible parks in Aurora. As I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, was the park itself on town property or school property?
Trying to
Spirit
think of
Park,
which-
I
I'm trying
think.
to trying to think of which one Highview is.
Highview's up on McClellan, just before Bathurst, next to Light of Christ.
Okay, yeah, so there, we have a tri-party arrangement there, so a lot of the land, there is town land there that the park is on. Access through the parking lots for the schools, we have a tri-party agreement to get there. And so there is land there. I'm trying, that's not Confederation Park, is it? That might be.
No.
Confederation.
No,
No,
it's-
so I'm thinking of,
There's a baseball diamond.
yeah. So I apologize. What was your question again about that site?
So the park itself now is unsafe and has been boarded up. So kids like that school has a high concentration of kids with disabilities. It's got the most community classrooms, I believe, in Aurora. So lots of
Okay.
kids are bused from across town. When the school was built, there was I think a joint, I'm not sure of the split of the effort between the school board, the community to raise funds, and the town to build that accessible park, which all those students rely on for all their play outside, and is so unsafe that they've had to fence it off and no one's playing on it this year. And I think we're in a pass the buck situation
okay.
of fixing
I-
it. So I guess I'm just
Yeah.
suggesting the town needs to make it a priority to help
So
resolve.
I do know which one you're talking about now. The light bulb just came on. That is a school board facility on school property. If I recall correctly, it's something I'll follow up on behalf of the committee with our parks manager and get a little more information. That's would be I'm sure our parks manager will have a lot more information. And I can get back to Councillor Kim with that.
Yeah, I think if I remember some email back and forth, I know the principal of the school was having a fundraiser and invited council and the public to view that park. And a couple of the response I did see was that the park belonged to the school board.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of us having a partnership or discussing with the school board, and I'm sure if we wanted to donate to it, I'm sure they're not going to
Yeah.
decline. Certainly, staff can look into that.
I'll get some more information for you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sean. Anything else, Allison?
No, but parks will be my hill to die on. I've been a resident for over my whole life, basically, since I was 3. I'm 38 now. And dare I say our park is almost worse than it was before. And it was one of the new builds. And I'm frustrated with just the slow progress when it comes to play. I think fundamentally we teach children who's included in a town when we create spaces for play and recreation. So I care very much about the whole parks and recreation plan, not just parks, but access to programs as well. I know that as much as we build accessible and inclusive programs, I know they're the first to get cut when there's low enrollment, but that leaves families with nothing. So I think I will give everything a clear read and I'll share more thoughts, but this is largely why I've joined the committee, because I just think we're moving at a snail's pace compared to other communities. And we really can do so much better for adults too. I'm a parent now and I want to go play at the park with my child. So I just think we need to kick it into high gear with parks and recreation.
And my do that. I actually went to Highview and I seen that park became over time, and I was wondering if I could get a colleague of Allison Tim was who works with the Canadian Jumpstart program get more funding.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I thought I heard that you enjoyed and you have a history in that park and you wondering about funding. I think that's what the principal would like and did canvass council in the town. And so staff will, have to investigate and have a communication with the school board and see what we can do. Okay, I see Peter's hand up. Peter?
Yeah, I sort of wanted to echo a couple of things that Allison said, but I also would like to read through the entire draft document before, picking at individual things. I was just wondering, maybe off the top, for the plan addressing park redevelopment, playground redevelopment, or changes in that draft plan. I don't know how much of that's included in there. I should have read through it before this, I think, but I will definitely do so afterwards. Is there, so for accessible facilities that would be included in those parks, is there discussion around surfaces, play surfaces, like what the base of the park would be made out of, accessible swings, slides, those sorts of things? So I've noticed them start to come into new parks, and I'm wondering if that is going to be the kind of standard going forward for any park retrofits or redevelopment.
So the master plan wouldn't get into that level of detail around specific park design. The master plan will talk more on a higher level about the need to identify accessible playgrounds, but certainly encourage that we look at these types of things. And then when we get to an actual situation where we're going to build a park, that's when we get into the detail, these types of details around design. And I believe that anytime we would look at something like that, that would come to this committee for input as well.
Okay. Good, yeah, because things even like some parks have sort of the packed rubber surfaces, and for kids with mobility devices, that's pretty much required. So it's good to know we'll have some input if it does get to that point. Maybe on that note too, in terms of input, you mentioned there was a recreation needs assessment that would be conducted. Could you give any more details on exactly what that entails? Who's involved in that sort of assessment and how it plays out? Maybe it's too big of a question to ask, but just maybe in a nutshell, what that implies.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, not at all.
It's a recommendation, so that
Okay.
hasn't happened or it hasn't been planned. It's a recommendation that we do that.
Sure.
So after the plan is approved by council, next steps after that are staff look at it, council look at it, and case by case, council will direct us or staff will seek approval for various projects as they come up. I mean, as you can imagine, a plan this size has a lot of recommendations in it. So one of the things that we do through the planning process is identify high, medium, and low priorities as well, and establish a table so that we monitor it year over year where we are with each recommendation as to whether we're going to pursue that recommendation. If we are, when we're going to do it. And so those would be future steps. That assessment is at this point, it's a recommendation coming out of this plan, but that's as far as it's gone for now.
And I think you mentioned this, but just to confirm, for that recommendation, the idea would be to include this committee's input on that as well.
Yeah, I think anytime we're developing a facility, we engage Greg in the process as well, and Greg would then bring those items forward to this committee.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
If I can add, our 10-year capital plan, it has a schedule of parks where every 10 to 15 year cycle, various town parks are in that schedule. And when it's it's that park's turn to be refurbished or renovated or improved upon, that plan will come to our committee, and our recommendation will go to council before our council reviews it as well. So we'll have an opportunity to weigh in on any park development or refurbishment.
Great. Thank you very much.
Greg.
Thanks. Just wanted to also follow up, Peter, on the comment on the rec needs assessment. So I know John mentioned it is a part of this plan as a recommendation, but I can tell you that I've already requested to be part of it from the get-go. And we are hoping to start that process later this year. So it will be in conjunction with myself and community programs. So part of the recreation team. And then we will definitely be consulting with this committee moving forward.
Great, thanks, Greg.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll just read out the recommendation. I should have done that from the beginning, but memorandum regarding the Parks and Rec Master Plan, draft 1 presentation be received, and that the Accessibility Advisory Committee comments regarding the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, draft 1 presentation be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. So I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, so that passes. Move on to the second item. John?
May I just say that I've never heard of a refrigerated rink before. They were always called artificial rinks when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Never. When I read it, I said, a refrigerated rink, wow.
Okay, so our second item, have a mover and a seconder to discuss our second item, please. Okay, Allison and seconder. Joanne?
I will.
Okay, Joanne seconds it. So this one here is that the memorandum regarding site plan application SP 2023-01, 100 Goulding Avenue be received, and that the Accessibility Advisory Committee comments regarding site plan application SP 2023-01 be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. So is there staff that will be speaking on this item? Is it Greg?
Yep. So pretty much the rest is all me. Okay, so here we are. So the comments have on this one have already been submitted. So if there's any additional updates we can always add them and resubmit them at that point. And I'm going to start us off with our more challenging of the three, and we'll progressively get easier from here. So this is the proposed property on Goulding Avenue here. We'll start off with the plans themselves, and we'll just kind of go through a high level of what we are looking at here before we get into the detail of the comments that have been proposed at this point. And then of course, at the end, if there's any additions or updates, we can always add those in at that point. So this is a unique building. So it is a U-shaped building, 2 stories in purple here on the top and the bottom, and there is a 3-story building here. So building A is 3 stories, and then the 2 attached are only 2. So we're going to keep that in mind as we go through this plan, because that will pose some questions to the comments. We do have our main accessible parking kind of spread out along the main part of this building. So we do have the 4 spaces here right at the center, and then the 1 space off to the side here. There are entrances, so all of these triangles here shaded are entrances to other units. And we do have other parking all the way around. As we get into more detail here. So again, we have curb ramps proposed, walkway here. I believe there is a sidewalk along Goulding along this side with some landscaping. We do have multiple entrances into the facility from the main side. And this leads into one of my questions with this facility specifically. There does appear to be a curb ramp here on each side, top and bottom. However, no accessible parking on the back of the building. So as we get into the design of the building, so this is the main floor of our facility. And we have our main entrance here. So we have our vestibule going into the lobby. Try to zoom in a little more. And then we do have a elevator here with a washroom and then a staircase going up. There are walls all along each side. So one of my real questions is there a link between any of these facilities? We only have one elevator, but yet we have multiple units. And every unit has 13 stairs up to a second level. Going into the second level, there is no detail as to what is on this level, whether it's just a staircase to an open space and it's a 2-story open unit, or if there's actual office spaces on that second level. That is not clear in the plans. So one of my questions. Along with that, the second level of the building A does not actually appear to have a stop on the elevator, which is one of my questions as well with this plan. But as we go into the third story, it does appear to be all open. So the elevator does open up. There does appear to be a hallway that leads into the north and south staircases. There are barrier-free washrooms on this third story as well. So this leaves me to believe there are office spaces up on the third floor and more commercial open spaces on the first and second floor. At this point, as there is a wall here, and then of course the rooftop of the two other parts of the building. Lastly, this is the, I guess, the view from the outside, just to kind of get an idea. We have our industrial truck spots at the back. And then the side, we do have all of the entrances to each individual unit along. And then this is the front facing entrance where we have our big entrance to A and B, and then the corridor down the middle. So this is the Goulding. So I'll just review the comments that I listed and I'll point them out on the plan just so you can all see, you know, what we're talking about at this point and where the comments have come from. So one of the AODA standards is the washroom on the main level must act as a barrier-free and universal washroom. And at this point, that is not visible, although it is on the third floor. Again, the usage of this facility is not that clear at this point. So we are recommending that this main washroom become barrier-free and universal. Currently, again, as I mentioned, the elevator does skip floor 2 and goes straight to 3. And does not connect to any of these other units. So 10 through 14 and 1 through 5, the elevator, there is none. So depending on what's in those units, we would need to have a conversation with the developer of what's going in there, as none of those second floors are accessible, if they're even a floor. And I think that's where the clarity is required. Tactile plates on all staircases we are proposing. emergency evacuation chairs to be provided at all staircases as well. Automatic door openers for all public locations. So every entrance and exit must have them. The path of travel. So as we go back up, in this one, you'll see it clearly. We do have our accessible parking spaces just here. However, there are entrances on the north and south of the facility. So therefore, although there's no accessible parking on these front and back sides, ensuring that we have a clear path of 1,500 millimeters or 1.5 meters and rest stops along the path of travel to get to the ends here. We're also recommending or putting forward, and that is both on the north and the south of the building. So those are the comments for this site plan. Guess we're going to questions.
Okay, thanks, Greg. I'll open the floor to any comments or questions. Joanne?
I'd just like to ask, I'm not so familiar with this, but you've got an elevator available in building A.
Mhm.
But there's no elevator in the other two buildings. Is there a reason for that?
And so this is one of the comments that I'm putting forward is questioning what this elevator is for. As we follow it up and we look closely, let me try to zoom in so you can see it. There is no opening on the second floor of this elevator. So this elevator is going from the main level straight to the third level and bypassing that second level. So this, to me, leads me to believe that it is a 2-story open unit on every level. And the stairs are probably there for just access for further use or for storage or evacuation should it need, or to get to the rooftop. And so this is where I'm questioning the elevator in the comments, and we'll see when the developer gets back on their response to the elevator. And then of course, on the second submission, we can further question accessibility and therefore use. There's 13 stairs that come up, and there is a door here.
I'd be highly questioning it because to me, that just seems to be ludicrous.
Yep. And the other part, if I go to the third story here, if we come here, there is a doorway right over here that goes to the rooftop. So there is an elevator that can actually access to the rooftop, but the second floor, there is no elevator access, which again leads me to believe it's a 2-story open unit, which we do have some, nice and tall industrial type units. But my question ultimately is kind of the same concern you have. Where do these stairs lead to?
I know.
So.
Yeah, Allison, and then we'll have Haley.
Do you mind zooming back to the first page where you looked at curb cuts?
Mhm.
So when I look at it, if I look at the right just above 14, the square with the triangles makes me think that's a curb cut. So if I look over to the left of, yeah, exactly there, I read that as just a straight curb and not a curb cut. Is that a fair, or does it specify?
So it does not specify.
Yeah.
Coming onto this original plan, there's the darker lines which
Yeah.
match the darker lines here.
Yeah.
So
probably a
yeah, there
curb.
is that inconsistency on the two plans. It very well might just be a curb, at which point, accessible parking would be on the front of the building and then would need to have this quite a bit of travel
Yeah.
to unit 1 and to unit 14 respectively.
Okay, thanks.
Haley?
If it I guess my thoughts will be dependent on some answers from other things, but if it is curb cut on those sides and those are all individual units, is there, I know we used to suggest this before, is there any way to move some of the accessible parking to those sides so that there is more accessibility to those kind of building Bs?
No, no, it's a good point, and one I also I considered. The way what I was trying to hope for is an explanation on the elevator situation first, because if the intent of this facility is all the offices and the bulk of the whatever is going in here is going to be on that first or third floor in the one in orange, then the accessible parking where it's currently located makes sense because that's where the bulk of the travel is going to be. If these are only strictly warehouses and like self-storage or warehouse use with the drive-up doors, you know, we could absolutely recommend further spots here by 22. The things to consider at this point is we would be then crossing travel or traffic in order to get up, and we wouldn't necessarily have enough space to provide that cut. So probably 25 would be best if we want to add barrier-free spots. So we can definitely look to add 1 or 2 on both the bottom and the top, if that's what we'd like to do.
Okay, we'll move on to Max.
regarding the elevator, I think the 2-story buildings don't legally need an elevator, but I would like to see the elevator keep the elevator, but in because they're putting in an elevator anyway.
And in terms of if it's required or not, the approach I usually take when I'm reviewing all these site plans is far above and beyond the minimum standard. And I've had many conversations with developers about that. So whether it's 2 stories, 3 stories, 12 stories, it doesn't matter. Every story needs to be accessible as far as I'm concerned, and we need to access that. The question becomes what is going into these buildings and is it really required? And to put 5 or 6 elevators, 13 or 14 elevators into a facility like this, just based on how the layout is not something that can reasonably be done. So there would need to be a layout change. But like I said, with plans like this, we will typically get a response back. And in my past 10 months or so, we've always been able to get that clarity on a future plan to clarify something that we're missing, and then we are able to further respond based on that. So I hear you, Max. There is one at least, which is good. Whether it's 2 stories or not, as far as I'm concerned, I still am questioning what is that second story for. And if it's open, then it's a moot point, and we don't need to worry about access up there.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Haley, to your previous comment, I will make note to add 1 to 2 spaces along the west side there of the building, 25, and then upwards. What's up here? Probably up here in the corner. So along this road.
Great, thank you, Greg. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that passes. And our comments will go to staff to get to council. Next item is 7.3. I have a mover and a seconder to discuss this item, please. Okay, Haley, seconder. Allison. Okay, so that the memorandum regarding site plan application SP 2023-03 on 175 Eric T. Smith Way be received, and that the Accessibility Advisory Committee comments regarding site plan application SP 2023-03 be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. Any questions or comments on this item? Or actually, we'll go back to Greg.
Alrighty. So here we are with this property. So this is a proposed hotel that will be coming in. This again, we'll go through the 7 plans, and then we'll get into some more detail at this point. This is actually probably one of the best plans that I've actually come across over the last little while, which is happy to see that developers are really starting to look above and beyond and all the intricacies here. So overview, this is our 6-story proposed hotel that will be coming in. There is, sorry, let me zoom in so you can see. There's a lot of stuff on this one. So we have our lounge area, main corridor at the front main entrance. And then we do have amenity space, landscaping, and outdoor space towards the back of the building as well. As we go in, so we're going to start with the basement level and move up through the stories. So this is where most of the staff areas are going to be. Change rooms for staff. So we do have barrier-free universal washrooms in the basement for staff. Elevator access, which is down below here. Linen chutes, mechanical rooms, electrical rooms. Mechanical and electrical rooms don't need to be accessible. Those are some of the spaces that aren't covered by AODA. But we also have laundry areas and many staircases leading down towards this area. So this is strictly staff area on the basement level. That's not good. On the main level here, so this is the main entrance. We'll get into parking, I think, towards the end. But we're going to come into the main lobby at this point. We do have a reception desk to the right as soon as you come in. A living space, so again, guest use only, so seating in storage space or gathering space across from reception. As we come down the corridor, we do have barrier-free washrooms, so men's and women's washrooms down here. There is a function area, so there are 2 meeting rooms down A and B, so a smaller one and a larger one, which does have a retractable wall to have 1 space. Function area, there is a bar connected to this space, storage, and a coat check. And across the hall here, we do have our barrier-free universal washroom on the main level. We do have accessible workspaces as well, and then staff room, sales office, and that sort of thing on the east side here. As we scroll over to the west side, we do have an open bar right beside the boardroom. more storage and more changing room and washroom, another universal washroom at the end of this hall as well. So we have one on either side. These washrooms and do lead into this vestibule, which does have a fitness center and a single universal changing space for the pool area. We do have also a full buffet and a kitchen for, I'm assuming, you know, breakfasts and lunches, and then of course a great room to seat at. As we look towards the back of the building, this is where we have our patio spaces. So it will be landscaped and an outdoor space that is for guests and people staying at the hotel. As we look, so these are basically the floor layouts of the rest of the floors. So floor 2 to floor 6 would have this very same layout. These are all the different units. So there is a variety of units. Elevators are located here, which lead into a lobby. There are one, where's the other one? 2, so one right outside the lobby, accessible unit. 2 right around the corner from the elevator is a second accessible unit, both King Studios. And then the third is halfway down the hall, is a Queen unit that is down the hall. So there, each floor does have 3 accessible barrier-free units that will be provided. This is an overarching look. Again, this is a more of a landscape look, but you can see we do have the 4 barrier-free spots at the main entrance that is located, and then 2 barrier-free spots at the back of the building as well, as there is an entrance that you can access the rear entrance to the facility. Again, if you are staying there, you can access either the front or the back. And then on top of that, this exit staircase, or sorry, the secondary exit entrance on the east side, west side here, would be accessible from either the top, the north or the south side to wrap around the building. This is just a blown up view of what the back patio does look like. So there are planters here, a covering, some seating, and then some landscaping before you exit out to the parking lot. And then this is just the look of the hotel itself. So we do have our main entrance and then the side entrance. So this is the secondary entrance right over here. And that's it. So as we look to the comments provided, so again, very similar, all staircases, we want to ensure that they're the proper tactile plates. The meeting space, we recommending to have assistive listening devices and the hearing loop that is placed into that space, which is here at the bottom in gray. Automatic door openers virtually throughout the whole facility. So indoors, outdoors for any public access space. The exterior path, I want to ensure that without obstruction, we still have barrier-free path of travel. My big question, I believe these 2 doors would be emergency exits out of the meeting space. So they shouldn't impede on that traffic regularly, but there are things that, kind of jet out, whatever these are, windows or flower pots, that sort of thing. So I just want to ensure that path of travel all the way around the facility is clear. I'm also putting in here that because we do have kitchens, and they probably are staff-based kitchens leading into the buffet, but to ensure that the kitchens, kitchenettes, and coffee stations have the appropriate level of access for accessibility for anyone to use, for both public and staff. And I also recommending that the chairs and tables and seating areas in the bar and the buffet area do also have accessible tables. To me, this bar looks like a high top table bar area, just based on how it's drawn. So I just want to ensure that we do have accessible seating up here in the bar and also down here by the buffet as well. Considerations for the emergency evacuation chairs at all staircases. There's quite a few, so they probably will need a few. All the service counters and to have the service accessibility spaces and the induction loops. Here in the workspace on the north side, I'm also recommending they consider blinds that can be kind of shifted upwards for lighting. And one other recommendation is I'm recommending that this accessible unit, so 218 to 618, so the 18s, be moved closer towards the elevator. It looks like it can be done, not necessarily by the studios, but this one. So I'm recommending if they can swap 18 with 16 in terms of accessibility, just to get it closer to the elevator, is something I'm also putting forward to consider. It may not work based on the structure of the building and the amenities, but it is something to consider. And those are the comments for this hotel.
Thank you. Greg, any comments or questions? This time, let's start from the screen this time. I'll start with Haley, and then we'll go to Joanne back here.
I'm not sure because you said about kind of the bars and stuff like that, but what about the patio, looking for accessible as well as accessible pathways on the patio? I find that's often overlooked by places. So making sure that there's accessibility on the patio as well.
And that would be more of the finishing of the floor, correct?
Well, finishing of the floor, placement of furniture.
Yeah.
Find it's often not looked upon in the patio, as well as even just like table heights and everything like that as well. People think indoors, but they don't also think of the accessibility outdoors.
Any comment? Maybe?
Greg?
Yep, I've made note, so we can definitely add that to the list. Just in terms of spacing, there is quite a bit of space, but with these interlocking, it seems to be interlocking stones. I'll just put the note forward to ensure that there is the consideration for accessible spacing outside as well.
Thank you. Joanne?
One thing that I find, because I have my own issues, I find a lot of times people have chairs without handrail, like without side handrails. I belong to the Voices of Joy choir, and that's a challenged choir too, physically challenged as well as intellectually challenged. And when they stand up, and a lot of them stand up, they can be very small people, large people like myself. They tend to push the chairs back unless they've got the handles that on the arms to push down and hold the chair. And that makes quite a difference, I find. And I just wondered if there's anything when people are putting things in, that recommendations can be made for that too, so that it's more accessible.
Yep. So in those eating areas, I did comment to ensure accessible tables and chairs, accessible chairs do include armrests as well. So looking at our design standards, that is something definitely that we can look at. In terms of patio furniture, again, we'll mention it in the when I speak to the patio furniture. I'm going to mention all furniture to ensure that we're considering accessible furniture throughout the facility as well, indoors and out. Yeah.
Max?
To comment I would suggest that accessible door operators be installed on the barrier free room.
On the, let's see. It might be listed here. So you're saying on these rooms themselves, Max?
Yeah.
It does not, I don't see it on the plan, so I will make mention of that. So
but the doors not very also I would suggest that a higher lift be installed in the pool.
So I did look at the pool. Coming from aquatics, that is kind of the first place I look. And sorry, it's just loading on my screen here. So there is a lift. There are always recommendations that ramps be put in, but at a bare minimum where ramps can't be provided, at least if we can have a hydro lift provided, which is on the plan here by my mouse. There are stairs at this end as well. And there is the barrier-free washroom change room attached to the pool itself.
And our lift allocated in the barrier-free room.
Sorry, the barrier-free rooms on the main level, or sorry, on the other floors?
Do they have higher lifts?
Not sure. I can definitely add that to the list as well to just make sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go back to Allison.
To Max's point, I guess my question is, how far beyond what's required through AODA can we go with recommendations? So like, if not a Hoyer lift in every room, one for the hotel that somebody could have brought to the room. And I think just generally in Canada, we have poor guidelines on even like bed height and the like having that space under the bed. Sometimes there's platform beds. So the type of bed being different in an accessible room, the showers, I can't really see. I'm wondering if you can zoom in on an accessible unit and their bathrooms. Often the shower head, which is removable, is like on the opposite end from where the bench is. So just like, can somebody actually function independently? Like making no assumptions that somebody's coming with a caregiver, I guess is
Right. Yeah. So it looks to be bath tub. It's probably a bath shower unit here. I'm just trying to compare. It looks like all units have a bathtub.
Yeah, so
shower
like the bathroom
combination.
doesn't look to me to be
There's,
wildly accessible.
there's a bar here on the toilet. These tubs do, in the picture, look different. So it would lead me to believe that these are different tubs than the standard units.
Yeah, I guess I'm
Um,
just saying, is it possible to review a better conceptual or visual of the bathrooms specifically? And I wonder
So-
if there's clearance for doors to open out in a bathroom instead of in. Maybe there's enough clearance, but it's often tight even when it follows code.
Okay. So what we can do, Allison, is we can always recommend above and beyond.
Yeah,
At a bare minimum, the AODA and the building code needs to be followed.
mhm,
I always push above and beyond,
mhm.
and I will get to a third or fourth or fifth review sometimes, and therefore a meeting with them directly in some cases to have those conversations about going above and beyond. But at some point, we would need to fall back to the standard that the province is setting for the whole province. Now, in saying that, if it's one of our buildings, absolutely, we can go above and beyond, and we can absolutely push for that.
Right.
But these are not ours, so we're just ultimately providing those recommendations. So I will make mention to ensure, I'll add the door comment in there as well. And again, these are going to be considerations. And then it's not very clear in terms of features and amenities. If they're accessible, like as you mentioned, we can't see bed height. We just see a dotted line. So we're going to have to trust that if this is an accessible unit, the bed height is an appropriate height as well. But we can definitely ensure that it happens.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? There are none. I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Not in favor? Okay, that passes. Great, we'll move on to item 7.4. That the memorandum regarding site plan application SP 2020-09, 1588 St. John Side Road be received, and that the Accessibility Advisory Committee comments regarding site plan application SP 2020-09 be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. I have a mover and a seconder, please. Okay, Allison. And a seconder by Max. Thank you. Greg?
Okay. So this plan we've seen many times. It has gone to many different public planning meetings and committee of adjustments as well. We're still on it 3 years later. So at this plan, so I'll just preface it with you. We are only focusing on this one block up here on the northwest corner of the site. The other ones are also proposed units, but we're not focusing on those ones. Those ones will come at a later date. As we scroll down, we do have two buildings, one on either side of the unit. This unit, building A, does have a drive-through, and unit B also has a drive-through that wraps around the back of the building. At that point, we do have I thought we had 3 accessible spots. This one's only showing 2. Maybe the next plan does. But I'll take a peek at that in a minute. In terms of units, so this is A, which is going to be split up into 2 separate units. This one, so we have 2 units, one A and one B. I'm not sure what is going in A2, but A1, I believe this one is the Starbucks location. And so we do have, again, a universal barrier-free washroom on the main level. Actually, we have 2. Now there is a note here, and I just want to make mention of that all the fit ups in the work, including washing facilities and barrier-free requirements, will be submitted in a separate submission on a separate date. So all we have here and all we're looking at this point is bare bones of this site. So I've already commented on previous plans on parking and path of travel, but again, it's been very slow of a process as it's come to this point, and we'll probably see this unit a few more times before it's finally complete. This little window here is going to be the drive-through window, so I can only assume that we're going to have a staff workspace that's going to be along this wall, and then a counter somewhere around here for public to purchase. And then in this open area here, we probably will look to have some seating as well. There is the barrier-free parking that is located here on the front, and then of course the curb ramp coming into either A1 or A2 at that point. As we move up to building 2, we do have, so this is going to be a Dairy Queen. So we do have an accessible parking space here that goes up the ramp and into this vestibule that goes in. Again, this street back here is the drive-through. And then so the window over here will be the drive-through. And then again, as I could assume, we're going to have counter space and staff workspace along this wall, and then seating all throughout the facility. We do have 2 universal washrooms as well on the main location. And then path of travel, ultimately, we're coming in and into the building. I'm not sure if there's going to be seating out here. There is quite a bit of patio space. I guess we'll see when we get the next layout and application, what that would actually look like. And then lastly, so these are actually the comments from the previous submission. So I added them in here just to update you all. Scroll over here. So automatic door delays, I've already commented on. Again, I just saw a square box, so I was given more generic comments at this point. And we're now seeing in this plan that they have been addressed with the buttons. Appropriate signage to designate accessible entrance. It is on the sign and on the plan as well. Exterior path of travel, considering the rest areas. Again, I didn't know what it would look like. So it looks and it appears to have at least more detail. And then of course, the rest of it for accessibility and accessible seating throughout the restaurants will be at a future submission. So we will definitely look at that at a later date. So my only comments at this point, so this plan has yet to be submitted. It is due next week, so we do have time on this one. So I will take your feedback, and at least it will go into the first submission at this point. But I did note that all the fit up work, including the barrier-free requirements, to ensure that we do have chairs with armrests, we do have accessible, at least 20% of the tables being accessible. We do have accessible routes to those tables and to the countertops, and that the service counter also has an accessible area for collecting and ordering food. And then considering, I put a consideration in there that all tables and chairs to be accessible, not just 20%, but if they can do it all, that would be lovely. And then that's virtually it at this point, just based on the limited information that we do have at this point.
Thank you, Greg. Open the floor for any questions or comments.
Yeah. If you go back to the bathroom in the Starbucks, I would like to see them a little they vary with the requirements and others know that it would be helpful for the to be a little bigger because wheelchairs mobility device can be a little bigger than the standard size.
So yeah, A2 does appear to be bigger than A1. So we'll definitely recommend that A1 be bigger. But also we'll see the requirements shown for the washroom as well in the next application. So we'll be able to hopefully see the larger size, if they're able to do that, as well as the other requirements here. I'm just going to go to the other plan. So outswing indoors. So these washrooms also appear to be slightly bigger than the Starbucks location. But I'll just leave a general comment to make them a little bigger.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll call the vote on this one. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that item passes. Item 7.5, the memorandum regarding National Accessibility Week 2023. It's May 28th to June 3 be received, and that the Accessibility Advisory Committee comments regarding National Accessibility Week 2023 be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. Can I have a mover and a seconder on this one, please?
I'll move it.
Okay, Joanne moves it, seconder. Allison, thank you. Greg?
Alrighty, so sorry, I'm just gonna close this. National Accessibility Week is coming up May 28th to June 3rd. At last check, the provinces, or sorry, the federal government has a page ready and haven't checked this week, so forgive me, but hasn't have much information out yet in terms of their plans and social media advertisements and education pieces and that sort of thing. However, internally, we are planning 2 initiatives during this week internally. So on May 31st, I've set aside and secured a speaker who will be presenting to staff with a focus on basically putting accessibility first in everything that we do as staff. And therefore, doesn't matter which division, which department, which area you work, we're going to really start to have accessibility front of mind, and hopefully, as we start to build things, whether it be parks, Allison, or whether it be new community centers or whatever the case is, these conversations are had at the forefront. So all town staff and council will be invited to this presentation, and this presentation will also be recorded. So our hope is to do it in council chambers, and if we can book that space out, and have the speaker will be virtual, but we will have a blended option for staff should they want to attend. And then my hope is that we are able to record the talk. It'll just be an hour and a half. Haven't finalized it yet, but it is with a Paralympian who will be coming in to talk about his experience from being able-bodied to becoming disabled, and all the challenges he's come across and everything that he's faced. And he has done a lot of work here in Ontario and beyond the GTA as well. So exciting for that. The second big initiative, and we should be actually getting a media release out shortly. If it's not this week, it'll be early next. We are actually partnering with Access Now. So I don't know if you've heard of Access Now or not, but Access Now is the go-to resource for accessibility information in virtually across Canada and beyond. It's a pretty cool platform. It's web-based and app-based, so you can definitely download an app. It's a connected platform to empower people to discover really the world of accessibility opportunities in their communities and beyond, anywhere they're going, and to really help them make better decisions and to help remove barriers in different locations. So currently, and I just literally it was last week, gave the go-ahead, got the approval and gave the go-ahead. So we will be working with Access Now and we will become verified on their platform. So Access Now will bring auditors into our facilities. We have 8 happening in the next month. We're going to bring them in to do our 8 main facilities. And then what we're going to do is launch, have all that work completed, get uploaded, everything ready to go. And we will be launching to our community virtually when it's ready, but it most likely aimed throughout that week of May 28th. And we'll do a second media release to just explain to our community what it's all about, how to use it, and really encourage them to access it and download the app and utilize it for that. We will be going in 3 phases. So phase 2 will be probably next year and most likely will be submitted through a capital project where we are going to include all the other facilities that we're not including in this first launch, which includes Aurora Town Square, Victoria Hall, sorry, the library, half of it's still under construction. So we're going to wait on that one, as well as, any of the other facilities that are somewhat, being renovated currently or being relooked at. And we're also going to do all our parks and all our trails. So it's going to be a big venture. So Access Now also gives accessibility status updates on parks and trails as well. So as we speak, and as we mentioned earlier with the parks assessment and the Parks and Rec master plan, Access Now is actually going to be coming in to do these functional assessments for us. I say functional assessment because they too go above and beyond AODA standard. They don't look at the building as, oh, look, you have a button. They look at the building as, is this button functional? Does it work? Is it in the right spot? Can people access it? Can we use it? Part of their audit, they do have an Access Now staff. They do bring in a consultant who I've been told is in a wheelchair. So they will go through all these facilities and access and give us that report. Myself will be the staff included in the audit, and we will kind of go through together. Parks works the same way, and trails. So they will have a red, green, yellow kind of method when analyzing our parks or our trails for accessibility. So, this amount of trail is 100% accessible because it's paved. And then we might get into somewhat accessible gravel or flooring. And then we're going to get into, probably non-accessible path, just so that the idea here is you can go on your app or go on the website. You can plug in where you want to go, pull up the address, and it will list all the accessible features at that location before you even leave your home. So you'll know if you can even get into the front door, if you're in a wheelchair or not. You know if there's an elevator to get to your second floor or not, or if it's a lift, or if it's some other mode of travel to get to that second floor. It allows users to access that information. Phase 3, once basically the whole town will get done in 2024. Of course, the parks and trails need to be done in the spring and summer, so there's going to be time there. But phase 3 will be encouraging our local businesses in Aurora to do the same. To get on the app, they don't necessarily need to be verified, although they could if they want to. But get on the app, get updated, and educate to our larger community, and of course our community beyond just Aurora. As people come into Aurora, they are aware of the features and the access that they will be walking into or coming into, I should say, prior to entering the facility. Along with all of those two things, we will also provide staff communication and social media education based on the government messaging, so we can all align throughout the province and really throughout Canada as well on this initiative.
Thank you, Greg. Hey, Greg, so I was just looking up Access Now. So is this like a Canadian company that's going global, and it's kind of like travel apps where they'll give you information about anywhere around the world that you are, and so if you're in Spain or Madrid, Spain, and you want to see if a building has accessibility features, just like it'll give you all that information. So we're going to be part of that application world.
So I don't know if they are global yet. I know that that's something they would love to do once, just based on my conversation with Corey from Access Now a few weeks ago, or a month ago or so. But they are focusing, I believe, across Canada. So Trails, I think they're called Trails something Canada, have actually reached out to them to utilize this platform to put all of their trails across Canada onto this platform as well. And so that's where they have kind of the two platforms, if you will, one for physical buildings and one for parks and trails, which we're going to utilize both. But I think the idea is, if you want to go to downtown Toronto, you can easily pull up a building, and before you even get there, you'll be able to see all the features at that location.
Thank you. I'm just reading on their app or their site, and it's a very promising application. Okay, we have questions and comments. Let's go to Allison and then Haley.
I was just going to say, Mayan Ziv is the creator of it. She's from Toronto. And it started sort of more as a crowdsourcing. So like I can go in and I can give my commentary on the access of a location. So it's great that they now have a better team to go out and assess, but largely you won't find info on every building because it requires somebody to go in and put in that review of that space. And then it's a little bit subjective to their experience, right? I don't think of everyone's access needs but my own, but she's like a top 40 under 40. She's getting a lot of support. It's a great app, and cool that we're gonna do that for Aurora. That makes me happy. I do have a question, Greg, about the Paralympian that's speaking. Who can you share who it is?
I can, I think. I don't see why not. It's Anthony Liu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And as for your comment, Allison, on the starting up as crowdsourcing, and Councillor Kim, to your comment as well. So we're taking the approach right now. We have, for example, if you look up the Aurora Family Leisure Complex on the platform, it currently says we have an accessible entrance, and that's it. But we know that building has a lot more. We have an elevator, at least one more thing, right? So it goes far beyond the public entering stuff. When I looked at this platform and came across it and noticed some of our buildings on here, what I wanted to do is get us up to, let's get everything on this list. Let's figure out a way that we can kind of data dump all the stuff. And how do we go about doing that? So I will actually be the admin on the Access Now platform for our facilities for the town. So if anything comes on board to get added, we can definitely look to add that. If anything is being removed for whatever reason, I can always go in there and remove it. from the platform. But also, Allison, as you mentioned, it allows our community to actually comment. So the way I like to explain this platform to others is it's kind of like a Google Maps or like a Google review platform. So you can absolutely use it, finding your location and finding the map of where you need to go, but also you can leave a review of your experience there as well. And if things were great, you can definitely comment on that. If on that day something wasn't working, by all means, like you can absolutely go in there and comment on that. I get all of those comments and feedback. So I will be getting all of that for all our facilities, parks and trails. I will be getting all that feedback to my inbox. And then if there is something that's not working that day, we can definitely look to remediate that as soon as possible and fix it for the community and update. That's number one. Number two, the benefit of this platform as well is our special events. So what we can also do is, as we have, let's take, for example, RibFest. We're out in a park for RibFest, right? What we do at RibFest is we convert a parking lot into fully accessible parking. So we only allow that one lot for accessible parking. We have MobiMats to assist with mobility throughout RibFest itself. There's the accessible porta potties that do get brought in as well. And then as we increase, right now, there's no platform for us to educate and explain some of those items. But if we can encourage our community to use this platform in this space, right, you can actually go in there and comment, hey, I went to RibFest and these are all the extra amenities that were provided for this event at the park that we have verified on the platform. So it gives us further exposure beyond Aurora for our events, which is another forward-thinking thought that I had with the platform itself. So.
Great. Thank you, Greg. If there are no further questions, I'll call the vote on this item. All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, that passes. We come to our last item, 7.6, that the Accessibility Advisory Committee comments regarding the Town of Aurora multi-year accessibility plan 2022 to 26 be received and referred to staff for consideration and further action as appropriate. May have someone table this item, and can I have a seconder, please? Okay, Max and Joanne. Greg, take it away.
I will be quick. So I'll let you all know. I did go through the past years plus of all of your meetings before I came in, and so there were a few things that actually popped out at me to update you all on. So first of all, going back, I believe it was March of 2022, so almost over a year ago now. Matt mentioned of a discussion on the sensory path at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex. So we do have one at the Stronach Complex. We were looking to bring one to the Aurora Family Leisure Complex. And I just want to update that has been completed in September of this past year. And I know that we've had a lot of good feedback with that sensory path, which is on the second floor at the end of the hall of the Aurora Family Leisure Complex. So it has been used. I was there at the New Year's Eve event, and I know that it was, I brought my kids and could barely get on it. Everyone was pretty much using it. So I just wanted to update on the sensory path. The other thing I think in the exact same meeting was also brought up was the ramp outside the senior center. And I believe there was a cost projection at that point of close to $40,000 to build that ramp. We did apply for a grant. However, we did not receive grant funding for the ramp. We did try, and we tried a few times. There was a wooden ramp. However, I did outsource a company to provide a polypropylene ramp. It's called a Q ramp. It is modular nature. It is intended to be, could be permanent, but also intended to be movable should you need to move it. And it was far cheaper. We're talking from $40,000. I was down to $3,000 to provide that ramp outside that facility. Along with that, we also outfitted the Petch House with the same ramp indoors, as well as 2 more portable ramps that we can use anywhere in our facility should the need arise. Whether we need it for elections, whether we need it for, one of our facilities is doing maintenance and we need to make a secondary entrance accessible. We now have 2 10-foot, and I think they're weighted upwards of 800 pounds. So any mobility device would be able to fit on that very easily. And we can go from there. So those are the 2 updates I wanted to propose. The cool thing about these Q ramps, which are modular in nature, I know that there's been discussion about the Petch House and updating that facility to be fully accessible. What we can do is then disassemble that Q ramp that's currently in the Petch House, and the plan is to move it out to Shepherd's Bush, where we have those shacks for Haunted Forest, and allow, instead of having the 2 steps in, the 2 steps out, to allow these ramps to be there permanent in nature and sit there, and they can weather the weather, and therefore make that space next year, most likely, but that space to also be accessible for that event. So those 2 things. In terms of the multi-year accessibility plan, just based on the sake of time, I'll update a few things. We did complete the accessibility plan for the election. Now, although we say we completed it, 2026 will be another election and the end of this multi-year accessibility plan. So we will go through this one more time, as well, ensuring all staff and members of council have the tools and resources to develop and provide accessible formats and information across the various platforms. So we are constantly doing that. We do train all staff within their hire, including council, within a new term of council, and train those staff accordingly. There are a couple of things I just want to also mention, that there are a few design of public space goals that I want to comment on. The main one is the audible pedestrian signals, or at the intersections that are listed. They are on the radar for engineering services. However, what we are doing, because they are on regional roads, we are waiting on the region, and the region has since postponed their work. So basically, once the region comes and tears apart the street, we will be providing those audible pedestrian signals. We're responsible for the municipal roads, so Kennedy, Henderson, and Wells. The region is responsible for their roads, which is adjoining to it. So it's kind of like we're waiting for that work to be completed. And then as well, there's the Stronach or Recreation Complex. All the door openers, most of the door openers have been installed, but the project is now on hold until the renovations are complete with the addition of the gymnasium. And once that happens, the door openers will be put throughout the rest of the building. So we can definitely go through this more at our next meeting, and we will have hopefully further updates beyond that. But just for the sake of time, I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you, Greg. So I'll just call the vote, given the time. All those in favor of receiving? Opposed? That carries. We don't have any informational items, so we have a motion to adjourn. Haley and Allison, all those in favor? That passes.
Hands went up very fast.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out this evening, and I look forward to seeing you all next month. Have a good night.
Thank you.